So what is Red Pill Day? Well, first and foremost, it's a celebration of everything to do with the truth movement, the people involved, the subject matter that's been researched, the information that's been uncovered, and everyone that's decided to get involved in what is effectively a fight between David and Goliath, or the Rebel Alliance and the Evil Empire. The sheer scale of the task that faces us as a relatively small group of people cannot possibly, under any circumstances, be over-exaggerated. It's just a mammoth task that we face. And yet people have approached this fight, this battle, with vigor, with love in their hearts, and with determination. Secondly, Red Pill Day is about laying the information before the eyes of our peers, using it as an excuse to make another attempt to wake them from their slumber. And thirdly, in the case of this inaugural event, it's an opportunity for us to raise funds over here on Blighty so that we can take on the banking system. And when I say take on the banking system, I'm referring to their advertisements for loans, credit cards, and mortgages. As Richard Werner explained, banks don't loan money. And secondly, the banks have a legal obligation to be transparent about the products that they offer and how these products work. In fact, there's a legal requirement for them to explain how they work. Let's look at what Richard Werner has to say on the subject.
Banks are being thought of as intermediaries, but this is not really what's happening. Banks,
what are they then?
They're creators of the money supply.
So you're firmly of the view that banks create money out of thin air?
Yes, well, I produced the first empirical studies to prove that in the 5,000-year history of banking. Banks are thought of as deposit-taking institutions that lend money. The legal reality is banks don't take deposits and banks don't lend money. So what is a deposit? A deposit is not actually a deposit. It's not a bailment. It's not held in custody. At law, the word deposit is meaningless. The law courts and various judgments have made it very clear if you give your money to a bank, even though it's called a deposit, this money is simply a loan to the bank.
That's true. Yeah.
So there is no such thing as a deposit.
So you think it's poorly and adequately named then?
So banks borrow from the public. Okay, so that much we've established. What about lending? Surely they're lending money. No, they don't. Banks don't lend money. Banks, again, at law, it's very clear, they're in the business of purchasing securities. That's it. I want a loan. Yeah. Fine, here's the loan contract, here's the offer letter, and you sign. At law, it's very clear, you have issued a security, namely a promissory note, and the bank is going to purchase that. That's what's happening at law.
Put it in layman's terms, what does that mean?
It means that what the bank is doing is very different from what it presents to the public that it's doing. I wonder how the FCA deals with this, because in the financial sector, you're supposed to not mislead your customers.
So if we can raise sufficient funds to enable the legal team that we've got ready and waiting to take forward an action against the banks and force them to comply with the Financial Services and Markets Act 2000, which requires them to explain how their products work and to be transparent in their advertisements, if we can force that to happen, then we may just cause the banks to wake up more of our peers than we could ever hope to. Because imagine every advertisement, whether by a poster or on the television or by radio, every product leaflet, every conversation between customer and bank employee. Imagine every single one of those interactions containing the truth that we've been attempting to explain to people, that you've been attempting to explain to people. Imagine the banks doing that job for you. How many people are we going to wake up? So this is an opportunity for us to drive a stake through the heart of the banking system, right over here on Blighty, at the City of London, the financial capital of the world. And if we can get change here, we can get change anywhere. So I implore you, please come to the website at www.red-pill-day.live and go to the crowdfund tab. And there you will find donate buttons. please, please, please donate generously. If we all chip in, then we can achieve the goal and we can then set the legal team to task. Let's make it happen. Namaste.
There we go, people. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of today, okay, if we hit £50,000 donations today, then this hair, see those locks? That will be coming off, okay? But only if we hit 50,000 today. I can tell you, nowhere near my hair is safe. All right, you've got 3 hours to do it, right? You've got 3 hours to get in more than 40 grand. Yeah. Okay, so it's been extremely slow. I would suggest if you want to see this hair gone, and if you want to give this action against the banks any chance of taking off anytime soon, well, then you know what you got to do, all right? And this could make a real change. It could be a game changer in actual fact. Yeah. But, hey, look, we can't do it without you. So, look, we're with you regardless. All right, at the end of the day, we're with you regardless. So if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But ultimately, if you want it to happen, and we've got the team to make it happen, well, then you're going to need to do something. And that means you're going to need to donate, no matter how big, no matter how small. Obviously, the bigger the better. Please give generously. But, enough said. Anyhow, what we've now got is a chap called Travis, okay, who was, among other things, instrumental in arranging for those marches that took place during COVID-19, right, up in London. Well, this is one of the people that was actually involved in arranging that. So, big it up for Travis. Here we go. Here we go.
Hey, man.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Right,
all right.
Travis, here we go, mate.
Oh, look at that.
We've got you sandwiched in the middle here.
Gotta go easy on me. Eh?
So, tell us about Travis and your background, and then what caused you to kind of wake up to the bullshit per se.
Yeah, right. So it first started 11 years ago now, when I was actually 18, and I was in my first ever proper job, and I was a CAD technician, and I just sort of was going through the motions. I studied mechanical engineering at college for a couple of years, went straight into this job, and it took me just a few months of starting to get taxed. That's what did it, man. So it's like, where's 20% of my wages going before I even get to do anything with it? And I was like, I don't feel like I'm actually getting anything back, So that's what started me out. I'll never forget the moment when I was actually sitting at my desk. I was supposed to be working, but I was just looking at stuff online, and something just triggered inside of me, and I had this wave of energy come up the back of my head, and I was like, that's it. I woke up. I was like, we're getting fucked, man. And it weren't too long after that well, at the time, there was these Facebook pages, and that was really quite big, and I was really grateful for the people that put in the time to put out these memes and put out this content, because it really helped me along my journey. I know you mentioned you didn't wake up till you were 39, right? But I only woke up because of the internet, and people put in the effort and time to wake other people up. So I was like, well, what can I do to give back? And I created this Facebook page that's still there, called Learn How to Think, and that was my first real taste of online social media beyond its personal use. And it did really well. It started out sort of in my romantic rebellious phase that I'm sure a lot of people have been through, just shouting at everybody, 9/11, everything, ruining family dinners, all of that. And that's how it got traction in the beginning. It started to build up, and then it actually just went quite viral. And after a year, it got like 50,000 likes, and I was reaching hundreds of thousands of people. But I was 18, just on my phone and computer, just posting memes. I'm like, this is awesome. I had no idea really what I was doing. Anyway, so I had to stop that for other reasons, and there's a big part of the journey there. Then I first started traveling in 2016. I got a one-way ticket to Australia, and I was there. I was only meant to be there for a year, and then I actually ended up going to New Zealand after that. Then I went to Europe, and that was 4 years. But during that time, I had a lot of free time, and that's something that I found is really, really sort of instrumental in this journey. And I'm going to get into like spirituality and personal development, because I think that's really important. But it's like, I realized what you do with your free time is really, really essential. So I had lots of time to myself. I discovered some of my gifts, I suppose, my purpose, my calling, like really what I'm supposed to do. I reignited my passion for writing, started a website, and that did quite well. And then I discovered I could do music, and all of this was geared towards trying to wake people up. I tried so many different things: music, writing, activism, all that. And that was quite good. That was good. But then I had this intuition that, oh yeah, maybe I should just go back to England for a bit. And I was back, and 2 months later, lockdown hit. And at the time, it was a bit obviously intense. But then it weren't too long after that it sort of kicked me into my activist mode again. Because I tried a little bit of activism as well when I first woke up, some romantic rebellious ways. But then I realised that it's going to take more than just activism. But at that point, it got reignited again. And then skip forward to 2021, the January the 20th, I created this movement that some of you might know what it was, called the Great Reopening. And when I did, my life flipped on its head. I kid you not. I went from a pretty cruisy life, just making videos, doing my HelpX work, to 18 hours a day, every day, for a good few weeks at least, at that momentum. And it just was crazy, man. So I just created a Telegram group. That's all I did in the beginning. And within a day, it just exploded. Some influencers got in it, and I guess it was just, it's just the time. The energy was around. It was just meant to happen. And within like a week, there was like 10,000 people in this Telegram group. We had nearly 100 groups all over the country. Ireland had its own division that was setting up its own movement. They had Sky News. They wanted to interview, and I said no, I ain't gonna speak to you. And it was just mental, man. And that, like, okay, it was successful in many ways, but it didn't get enough traction. And in hindsight, like 10 days to plan a revolution. It was like from the 20th of January to the 30th of January, we're going to get all the businesses open, and it's going to be this peaceful revolution of the mind. And it was crazy. But it did have its role to play. And that put me into, I guess, catapulted me into the heart of the activist scene. And I got in touch with all the people that were doing the protest. That's actually how I got in touch with Simone as well, and got into Unite for Freedom. And I'm sure many of you watching the stream and in this room attended some of the massive protests that happened in London. And I do have quite a lot of love for the people of this country, because when push came to shove, man, we really pulled our finger out. We think the biggest protest in London was easily over 1 million people, and it was incredible to see, because it was at the time you'd walk into a supermarket, you'd be the only person not wearing a mask, And I was just smiling at the point. It's like, hi, here's a happy human face. But then when you go to London, it's just an endless sea of people not wearing masks, all chanting freedom. And I'm just at the front with a megaphone, like, okay, this way, guys, this way. And, they're all activist rebels. They don't want to be told where to go, but someone had to try and do it. And there was only a small team of us, it's mad. So that was all of that. But then that's calmed down, and thankfully we've come out of all of the COVID madness, and I've got back into what I did before the COVID madness, and that is what I guess the crux of what I'm going to speak about is personal development and spiritual revolution. Because, okay, during this period of time, the COVID madness, so people are like, yeah, if we just stormed in, killed all the politicians, then we'll be okay. And it's like, well, I don't think it's going to be quite as simple as that, because I think, although it's very, very important, everything that's been spoken about today, and there's so much knowledge in there, and I'm still learning a lot about it, ultimately, I think to solve the problems that we are facing as a race long term, we need more evolved people. We need people at a higher state of consciousness, people that are acting more from their heart, acting with morals, got values and principles, and all of that. Because if enough people weren't acting out of fear and had this spiritual foundation where they could tap into acting out of love and understanding some of the metaphysical principles, that when you do walk your path of a heart and you align yourself with high values, and you can get it to God or whatever you want to call it, the creator, whatever, but when you understand that there is this divine framework that's just waiting and there and ready for people to use and utilize, you will be looked after. But it just might be a bit scary in the beginning. At least that's what I've lived to be true. There's been situations where it's like everything's going to go to shit. Then at the last minute, it doesn't. And it's like, I feel when you do walk your path of a heart, that's you do get taken care of. And so I'd say for people on the individual level, the basics, most people know what the basics are of looking after yourself, right? It's exercise, sleep, eat right, and drink good water. But after you've got that down, it's like, where do you go from there? And that's when you start getting into the mental part of the being. It's a really good place to go afterwards. And a lot of what people are acting out, a lot of their thoughts and their beliefs have come from evil forces that are seeking to control humanity. So if you can deprogram yourself from that, then you're on to a winner, right? Because if you are just living out these beliefs that have come from people that seek to control you, you don't have your power, you're not empowered. And I think that's absolutely crucial. So there's a lot that you can do in that realm, but it's a really good place to start. I'm really, really big on meditation. So as well as my political awakening that happened in 2012, it wasn't very long after that I started to get into meditation as well. And this technique is, there's many techniques of meditation, but the actual practice itself has been instrumental in my personal development and my evolution as a being. And I would say to anybody who hasn't ever done meditation before, there's a lot of different techniques out there. And when I first started, I was just trying to just focus on nothing, right? Just have nothing in the mind, and didn't get very far with that. I kept trying, and I made a little bit of progress, but things really, really picked up for me when I did a Vipassana course. And I did this in New Zealand in this beautiful, beautiful setting. But you hear about a meditation course and you think, oh yeah, it's going to be pretty chill, just sit down and do nothing for a bit. Nah, this is insane, man. It's 10 hours of meditation every day for 10 hours a day, for 10 days, 10 hours a day. All right, and someone at 4 a.m. has got a big gong and they're bashing it outside your door. Wake up, come on, time to meditate. And it's mad. But but the technique that they teach is the Vipassana technique, and it's gone by different names around the world, but essentially it's just body scan meditation, right? So you just focus your attention on top of your head and you bring it all the way down to your feet, and you go up and down, you go up and down. And what I found is that compared to just having no thoughts and trying to think on nothing, just actually having something to focus on, especially the body, it's really, really good for developing awareness, and it brings you into your body. It helps you with embodiment, which I think is a very, very important foundation for anybody who's looking to get into personal development and live a better life. Is we need to get more in our body, because a lot of what the agenda is to break people away from themselves, out of touch with themselves. So I found that meditation, the Vipassana meditation, was really, really good for that. And then it helps you to develop awareness, and then with that awareness you can get into what I call thought replacement. And so what that is, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of what the people are thinking about, acting about, this subconscious programming has happened, and it affects the structure of your brain. So I sort of have this analogy is that over time, you will just have this negative thought, and it will just, your subconscious has been programmed, and it'll be like this trench. And every time you have this thought, this trench will get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, to the point where it's just natural and easy for you to have these negative thoughts. It takes no effort at all to think this way. But when you develop awareness, what you can start to do is when you have this negative thought, you can become aware of it, you can see it, and then you can counteract it, or at least be aware of it and stop it. But if you counteract it with the positive opposite, then what you start to do is you start to dig this trench in the other direction, basically. And that, over time, will restructure your brain. And when you start to do that, you'll build these new pathways. And what can actually happen, especially if you've got the foundational pillars covered that I mentioned earlier, that you will start to have naturally more positive thoughts. You'll think more empowering stuff about yourself, about the world. And that's huge, because then from what you're thinking, that can influence your actions. And I think that is so, so crucial. So if we was to go from the 4 foundational pillars to then reprogramming yourself via thought replacement, then you're onto a winner. Then you can also look at things like affirmations. They work for some people. I've had great luck, or say great progress with affirmations. It's like, I guess, changing your mind then changes your reality. And I've done experiments with this, and it's been incredible. Really, how you can change your external world by what you think up here. It's really quite amazing. And then from there, I would say the next thing to go for would be to open your heart, actually. So once you've got your mind in check and in order, you've got the foundational pillars in order, then you want to start opening your heart. And again, you can look at meditations to do this. You can just open your heart. You can just feel the love for yourself, for people, for reality, for whatever, even for God or the Creator. And I think that's really, really crucial. And then when you've got those covered, and then you could possibly get into shadow work. We could maybe get into a little bit about that. But if you've got at least that down, then you can start to look at your purpose, your gifts. What do you have to bring to this world? What is it that you can do that you really enjoy, that actually genuinely helps people, and you can make money from it? So when you can find whatever that is, then you're really, really onto a winner. And it comes back again to what I mentioned earlier about acting or aligning with your path with a heart. And if enough people did that, it would completely transform this world piece by piece. You know, Gareth was talking earlier how, you know, this thread that gets pulled, and, you know, I think if enough people were actually living from their path of a heart, that could be what topples the system, or at the very least, I don't know if we're ever going to completely destroy evil, but we could at the very least get it in check so that the balance of power is actually more in the hands of the good guys, so to speak. So if enough people do that, then we'll see a better world. And I'm quite excited anyway, because if I was just to talk a little bit about how I live my life now, because I live what I preach, if you like. I literally have a life where it's at maximum freedom. Okay, it can be challenging, it can be stressful, it can be long days, but I work when I want, where I want, essentially, and I do what I love. Like, I really love what I do. I can see the transformation, for example, when I'm doing my coaching, and you've got a person who comes in and, you know, they might have had a hard day or a hard week or whatever, and you just sit down with them for an hour and you just be present with them. You listen to them, but also you give guidance and advice when necessary. You ask the really, really good questions, and they can come out of it and they're completely transformed. And it's just an hour, you know, just 1 hour, but it's amazing. And to see, like, sometimes it's almost hard to believe, but then I look at how much effort I've put to get to where I am now. It's like, yeah, this is actually what I do for work. And I recently interviewed this man, really, really cool guy. He's from America, and he's in the top 3% of coaches. This guy, he charges $500 an hour for his work, but I do actually believe he's worth that. And he has people that come to him for years and years on end, because whatever they're getting from this guy is worth $500 an hour. And I speak to him and I listen to him. Al Colleen's his name. And I'm just like, yeah, wow, you are incredible, man. And what he says is, I get to love people for a living. And that really struck a chord with me. I was like, wow, man, I can see why you've chosen to do this. And that's what I'm building towards. Okay, I'm not $500 an hour, but maybe in the future, you know, I'm only 29, right? But yeah, I've been in this game for a long time. Like I say, it's been 11 years. Basically, my entire adult life has been dedicated to this. Like, that has been it. And at some point in my journey, there was this like defining moment where it was like, yeah, I dedicate my life to this. This is what I'm here to do. I don't know if I can speak. Maybe I'll touch on this, because psychedelics have actually been quite useful for me, and I think the very careful and controlled use of psychedelics can be very, very helpful for people. But there was this one profound moment on a mushroom trip where I was staring at a mirror, right? I walk into this bathroom. Actually, my friend had taken a bit more than me, right? But he said he saw sound. Anyway, he saw the sound in his speakers. Anyway, I walk into the bathroom. I stare at this mirror, and I start doing eye gazing for myself. I just get encapsulated by myself. And it's going on for quite some time. My face starts to change. It looked like really futuristic and kind of alien-like, and, you know, like I guess a Nordic alien, if you used to look into what that is. Not a grey alien, thankfully, not like Mark Zuckerberg. It looked quite cool, actually. So this went on for some time, and then suddenly this flash of light just appeared out of nowhere, and there was this spiral of it looked like Sanskrit writing. That's all I could put it as. I didn't even know what Sanskrit was, but I looked into it. And then the first thought that I had was that my soul has been sent here to help humanity evolve. And that is really what I'm here to do. And I feel like I live that day by day. So if anybody's listening and anything that I'm saying is resonating, just know that it's completely possible to live a life of fulfillment and enjoyment, but challenges, of course, but also just aligned with your heart. Because what I'm seeing right now, and COVID was a really good, I guess, it peaked quite strongly throughout COVID, is polarization. And I'm seeing that the good guys, the ones that are really putting in the work and the effort and the time and doing the work, they are getting stronger and more powerful and more connected. At the same time, it does seem like parts of the evil guys are also getting more money, more power, but then you've got the normies in the middle that are just like leaves in the wind, right? They're just going wherever, they don't know where they're going. But but that's what I'm seeing is this polarization effect, and it's really, really exciting. Like, I get really excited about this because it's like, even with all of this bullshit, and there's so much of it's been covered over the past 9 hours, the stream's been going, of all of the system and the slavery and the taxation, all this that's trying to keep people slaves, basically. Even with all of that, it's still possible, if you want it, and you really want it, to live a life of freedom and excitement and enjoyment and fulfillment.
Amen to that.
Right. Now, I know there's going to be some questions, and the first question, what mushrooms were they?
So I can't remember the exact strain, but I know that they were... No, they were psilocybin mushrooms, right? So whenever someone says magic mushrooms, they're nearly... I'm tired of being broke. I need some money. So I started getting into abundance affirmations, and just not only just saying I am abundant and I'm abundant, blah, 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 actually sort of waking up and really getting into the feeling of abundance and viewing the money that I did, only a little bit that I had at the time, viewing that completely differently. So my perspectives on money changed and all of this. And for a good month, every day, when I went to bed and when I woke up, I was doing these affirmations, and I was really getting to the feeling of money and having loads of money, even if at the time that I didn't. And then throughout the day, I wasn't worrying about it at all. And that then shifted something inside of me, because then what happened is, before too long, I started to get a bit of work coming. So I remember the first job I got, I was just digging holes for this guy, got some money, it came through word of mouth, someone needed some help, did a good job for them. And then I left the place where I was, and just for a little while, went away, did another HelpX, did a really good job for this guy, and he then said to his friends, yeah, Travis is a good worker, he puts in the work, does a good job, blah, blah, blah. And then so they started to hire me, and then there was this tipping point where within about a week, I had like maybe 2 or 3 people just say, you should post on the Facebook groups. You should post that you need work, you need this and that. So I did, and I posted on like 3 Facebook groups, and within 2 days, I had like 6 people contact me saying, yeah, we need this, we need this, we need this. Come on, can you help? Can you help? And then since then, my entire time in New Zealand, I become a full-time gardener. Money was never an issue. I had work coming left, right, and centre. I had so much work I could put on my prices. I'm walking down the road once, and this guy's like, we start chatting, and he's like, hey, do you want a job? Do you know what I mean? It was just like money just kept coming to me, and I was sorted for the rest of my time in New Zealand. So that was my first time experimenting with it, and it worked for me.
Law of attraction, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah,
so you put out the feeling of what it's like to have what it is that you want, and that in itself should draw that or attract that to you.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it with regards to women, but I'm sure at some point in time that may well work. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, great stuff. So what is it you're doing now? So you've got your own platform.
Yes.
I understand you work with Simone Marshall, funnily enough, at the moment.
The legend herself, yeah.
That's Empower the People, right? Absolutely,
yeah. So there's actually quite a few things that I do online. So I have my own platform. On there, I teach people meditation. I have recorded meditations. I also do the coaching. I have courses, and so on and so forth. There's quite a lot on there. But then as well, I work with Simone on this incredible movement called Empower the People. She's going to be on later, and you get to hear all about that. But if I was just to say, this movement is awesome, and it's been really quite cool actually to being with Simone on the front lines of London with all the protesters, to then now what we're doing in a much more sort of technical sort of sense. I mean, I don't know a lot of what you guys talk about. I just did the promo, right? But it's really quite amazing, and this is what I mean with, I can see how this movement is helping people. It's helping people with serious issues, but it's also using the system against itself. which I think is really, really cool. So that aligns with my heart. I'm like, yeah, I can get into that. So that's a big part of what I do. I mean, obviously, I manage the social media on there, do the podcast, the People's Empowerment Podcast. You should go check that out if you haven't already. So that's a couple of things. And then also I have the Climate Con, and one of our guests earlier, Dennis DiBernardi, he was actually on the podcast that I do for that too. And that has its own, I guess, its own little world, its own zone. It's got a small membership that's growing. I recently put out an ebook on there, The Beginner's Guide to the Climate Con, and that was really good. That was received quite well, actually. So that's it, man. It's a lot of time on a computer, but everything that I do is aligned with my heart. You know?
That's sweet. The way to be, right? You've got to be following your path, following your purpose, whatever sits well with you.
Yeah, man.
Conscience-wise, we've got any questions from our crew for Travis?
What's ClimateCon about?
Yeah, so one of the main agendas that our enemies have been building up for quite some time is the climate change narrative, right? And it took a backseat during COVID, and that's sort of come back again. And basically, piece by piece, I'm just tearing into that, like all day. That's what it is. And you can find on the social media, there's lots of social media posts I do, also do articles, and it's dismantling it all. You can get into how the fossil fuel industry actually might be pretty good for in many ways. It's not perfect, and then we can maybe talk about how certain energy technologies have been suppressed. If you look at Nikola Tesla and what he was doing with free energy and so on and so forth. But even with what is available now, I don't think fossil fuels are actually that bad. I think the green agenda in of itself is just another way for them to try and tax people, get them down, control them, make them slaves and guilty for being alive, basically. And a big part of that, obviously, is CO2. Now, on the greatclimatecon.com website, you can see the podcast where I've interviewed scientists, and we have, they have shown categorically how CO2 is actually, it's not this evil devil gas that's going to kill us all, it's actually plant food. And with an increase of CO2, if you go to the CO2 Coalition, you can see they have this website, and it's got all of this graphs, and it shows that with more CO2, you have greater crop yields, for example. And they did this nice graph with more CO2, there's more wheat production and so on and so forth. So you can see why they might be a bit worried, because it's like, oh, we can't have those damn peasants having too much food in abundance, because then how can we control them, right? So let's make CO2 really, really bad. But then I actually think it's really, really good for basically, if it's good for plant life and it's good for those guys, it's probably good for us too, if we can have food grown quicker and we get more out of our crops. And then also there's this really interesting study that was done by NASA, and I know we spoke about flat Earth earlier, but I think it's a sphere, but we won't get into that. NASA had this study where they've shown that the Earth is actually getting greener, and that's an article that's on the website. You can go check it out. And from 2016, they did this study for many years back, and it was quite a huge percentage. I think it was maybe 16% green. I can't remember exactly, but it was a lot. It was like, you think 16%, even the whole world's vegetation, more greenery, and they attribute it in large part because there's more CO2. Mm-hmm. That sounds pretty cool. And then finally, I guess just to quickly wrap up, actually there's a couple of things for the ClimateCon, but the fact that global warming would actually be a really, really good thing. I mean, have you guys ever experienced a winter in the UK? You know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't you want it a bit warmer during all of that?
Well, I mean, I tell you what, with this summer, how can they say it's global warming?
Right.
It's not nowhere near as sunny as when I was a little one. So
yeah, man, exactly. So yeah, there's actually a few. I interviewed Piers, and he said that we might be entering into a period of cooling, which would kind of suck. I kind of like better winters, but I think it would actually be a really good thing if things got a little bit warmer and we had a little bit more CO2. And I guess the last thing that I'd mention in the ClimateCon agenda, the climate change narrative, because tied into that is a huge anti-meat agenda. Now, personally, I love meat, and I get my meat from the best sources that I can find, and I function the best when I have meat in my diet. And I question the very strong push towards veganism. Now, if you want to be a vegan, no problem. Hey, I respect free will, but I think that there's only a small percentage of people that can actually make that work. I think most people would actually benefit from some meat in their diet, and some people actually quite a lot. And then there's again the whole thing of trying to make you feel guilty just for being alive and having certain dietary preferences. But then there's like for example, the cow burps farts thing. That's just ridiculous. Are you kidding me? That's our problem, cow burps. Like, and then on...
What is that? What is that? I think I've seen it, but I can't remember.
It's the methane, apparently.
Oh,
it's
it's
killing
the-
us all. As if there weren't animals before we had cows or whatever, I don't
They
know.
started saying that years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Started with that one.
Yeah, there's this whole thing that the methane is destroying us and it's because of cows. But then if you'd actually look into the whole meat industry and how the farming of animals, okay, factory farming is not really that good, but if you just look at how there'd be huge amounts of agricultural land that wouldn't be used if we didn't just have cattle grazing it, you know. And then you look at all of the certain parts of waste that we have from our food industry that would just get put in the ground somewhere or whatever. You can feed that to the cattle and it recycles it and then it turns it into meat that we can then eat, and there's all this sort of stuff. And that so I feel that the push for veganism is coming from another, again, trying to control people. And I actually think that any meat eaters, if you like meat and it makes you feel good, then enjoy it.
Well, I think there's one or two parties that have got vested interests in some plant-based alternatives, Mr. Gates. Sorry, did I say that?
He's everywhere, isn't he?
So he is everywhere. Yeah, I was trying to think of a euphemism for that, but he is everywhere.
He's everywhere.
It's not good, is it?
And it ties into a part of what today is about, because we need money to be able to fund our fights, because I've often joked how easy this would be if we just had Bill Gates level wealth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This would be piss easy. I mean, look at what this guy's doing with money. He's everywhere. He can fund like BBC. He can fund anti-vegan agendas. He can fund jabs for everyone. He just can do all of this because he has money. If he didn't have money, he'd be useless. We can do any of this shit. So that's why in the awakening movement, I think we need to break a bit of this poverty consciousness around money and realize that it's just a resource, it's just a tool, it's a neutral force that we can use to our advantage. And that's again, I question, where does the poverty consciousness come from? I think the very same people we're trying to fight against.
Mm-hmm.
They've imprinted it into people to have this disempowering belief around money.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Good talk, Craig.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Thanks, James. Any other points you want to make?
No, I think that's it.
So look, just to refresh on your platform, because obviously you are available to give one-to-one sessions to people.
Yep.
So what is it? TravisCook.uk.
UK.
Yep. TravisCook.uk.
Yeah,
All
that's
right?
my website. You can find me on the socials if you search Instagram, Travis Cook UK, Telegram, same thing again, and they're the best ones here. You can find me on there.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much, mate.
Great.
Pleasure, bro. Respect to you, bro.
Good to see you, man. Rightio, everyone. Look at that. Big up to Travis there. Big up once again. Lovely stuff. Right, okay. Well, look, let's get back to this, because we're hoping that at 7 o'clock, we're hoping that Rob Menard, legendary Rob Menard, is hopefully going to be making an appearance. So hopefully we've got our timings right. He's going to be beaming in from Canada, okay, to have a bit of a chat. But before that, look, let's just get back to, we're talking about money, because that's the underlying theme of today. And by the way, what I would say is, look, a very big thanks to everyone that has thus far donated and or purchased a t-shirt, all right, and contributed to the cause. Without you, we cannot possibly do what lots of people have been wanting to do, which is take on the banks. All right, this is the opportunity that we've got here to do it, to make it happen. And so thank you to everyone that has so far donated. All right, it means a lot to us, but we want it to mean a lot ultimately to everyone, okay, by taking them on. And let's see if we can gain a knockout. Anyhow, let's get back to, where are we? Yeah, here, apart from here, okay. Let's just look at something here, because, I mentioned earlier that the banking system is effectively running. I alluded to the banking system as basically running everything. It's running government, it's influencing government. Right? This is a banking orientated system, banking controlled system. The banker is running the game of Monopoly. The real life game, I say real life, the real life game that we're operating or acting out in real life, but actually it's born from fiction. Okay, it's born from a lie. And we're just acting this out as if it's real. We're making it real. But I want to show you a little video here because I want you to understand where the true power actually lies. And I want to give you a video which actually explains in an actual real picture of who's where, who's in what position, and who's got the power and who outnumbers who. And it's a video called The Tiny Dot. So I want you to enjoy this because it's quite fun. All right?
Once upon a time, there were 100 million people. They had different interests, different beliefs, different occupations, but for the most part, they got along pretty well. Then one day, a gang of a few hundred people showed up. Need to zoom in some more to see them. I know they're there somewhere. Zoom in. There they are. And this gang of a few hundred said to the throng of 100 million, "From now on, you all have to give us a cut of everything you earn."
This is an accurate graphical comparison between the number of American taxpayers and the number of U.S. congressmen.
And the throng said, "Gosh, do we have to give you a cut of what we earn?" And the gang of a few hundred said, "Yes, you have to." And the throng said, "Well, okay, I guess we have to." And one little troublemaker asked, "What if we don't?" The gang of a few hundred didn't like this and said, "If you do not comply, we shall unleash upon you our legions of enforcers." And the throng cried, "Oh no, please don't. We will comply, we will pay."
This is an accurate graphical comparison between the number of American taxpayers and the total number of IRS employees.
Time went by and the gang of a few hundred said, "Now we want more of what you earn." And this kept happening over and over again, until eventually some of the throng were paying almost half of what they earned to the gang. Whenever the gang demanded more, the throng would say, "Golly, we're already having a tough time. Do we really need to give you even more?" And the gang always said, "Yes, you must, or we shall unleash our legion of enforcers." Now the gang of a few hundred was getting trillions of dollars every year, spending it on wars and pyramid schemes, giving away goodies to their friends, buying influence, and doing lots of other things. And some of the throng started saying, "We don't really like the war you're waging with the money we give you. Do we really have to be paying for that?" And the gang said, "Yes, we demand it. Don't make us send out our legion of enforcers." And some of the throng said, "You're taking our money and giving it to huge corporations and giant banks, and some people who just don't want to work. A lot of these things we don't like." And the gang said, "We don't care. We will decide how to spend it. You just do as you're told, or else." And the throng said, "Okay, I guess we have to." But eventually the throng got so fed up, so angry, that they took a drastic step. One day they said to the gang, "We don't like what you're doing. We want a new gang." And after pouring a huge amount of time and money into the effort, they replaced the gang with a new gang. Then the throng pleaded with the new gang, "Now, at long last, can we keep our own money, or at least keep more of it?" And the new gang said, "Sorry, but after much discussion, we've decided that you can't. You have to keep giving us what you've been giving, in fact, a little bit more than before." The throng was distraught and said, "This is dreadful. But after all, what choice do we have? I mean, they say we must comply, and they have that scary legion of enforcers. We're powerless against them. We'd better just do as we're told." So they did as they were told, got poorer and poorer, and lived miserably ever after. But after all, what else could they have done? What power could this throng possibly have compared to this gang of a few hundred and their enforcers? what chance would this thing have against this thing? How could these 100 million people ever hope to successfully resist the awesome power of this tiny little dot? In case anyone missed this, let's review. Here's them. Here are their enforcers. Here's us. Them, us. Them, us. Does anything about this seem just a little strange to you? Are you perhaps wondering, why does the throng need the permission of the dot to do anything? Why do these people feel the need to ask this tiny little dot if they can keep more of what they earn? Why would they spend year after year literally begging for lower taxes from this little dot? Is this dot just really darn intimidating? Is it very persuasive in its reasoning? To be blunt, why would this throng give a rodent's backside what this tiny little dot wanted? The fact that this tiny dot has the gall to issue such demands to such a throng is pretty startling in and of itself. But what is far more amazing is that the throng obeys this minuscule little parasitic gang of control freaks. What could possibly explain this? Let's ask the dot. This is how it works. When we, the dot, take your money and spend it on things you don't like, we're representing you. In fact, though you're not allowed to actually keep your own money, you're allowed to decide which little dot will steal half of what you earn. So that really means that you're in charge and that you're agreeing to give us your money. In fact, we, the dot, are serving you when we take your money and spend it on things you don't like. And so you should thank us and treat us with great respect and honor for having robbed you on your behalf for your own good in order to serve you by doing things you don't want us to do. So there you have it. I hope that cleared everything up for you.
If you're not entirely satisfied with the dot's explanation of things, you really should read the book The Most Dangerous Superstition, available now at Amazon.com.
Right, well, there we go, people. I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope that makes it clear that the kind of position that you're actually in. Okay, so remember, they're just doing it on your behalf to help you, to serve you, because that's what you want. Because you don't ever express any other opinion. You don't ever do anything to suggest that you're not happy with the current status quo. And let me make something very clear. You know, we mentioned earlier that it's the taxes that actually go to repay this national debt, right? And the interest on this national debt. Now, this is the loan that they never actually came forward with, right? It was the promise to make the loan, and this is what we're attempting to pay off. And in so doing, on average, according to statistical and empirical studies and statistics, on average, we pay 67 to 80% of our lifetime's earnings in one tax. In tax in one shape, form or another. Let's put it that way, right? So in taxes, we pay 67 to 80% of our lifetime's earnings for a loan that never happened. Okay, and here's the deal. If the banks can print this stuff themselves, why can't the people print the loan or the money for themselves through government, of the people, by the people, for the people? Why can't that happen? Well, funnily enough, throughout history there have been some occasions where that actually has happened. Okay, and there's been very little tax, in fact no taxation, no income tax for a start. And there's also been periods of prosperity. But somewhere along the line, a rule was made, right? A rule was made by man, about man, to dictate that the government couldn't create its own money. It must borrow it from an institution known as a bank, which is privately owned, which in turn will create the money just by printing it off of a press or tapping some keys and creating this digital money into existence. Okay? That was decided by, well, apparently by you lot, or by your ancestors on your behalf, for your benefit. They decided to elect people to make these decisions on their behalf, to actually put you into a situation where you're giving over 67 to 80% of your lifetime's earnings in taxes. And in so doing that, bearing in mind, one of the kind of attributes of property is that, property, if you have property, you can defend that property against the world, right? And his brother, including any government. It's yours. And yet they're demanding that you give it to them, and you give it. Now show me you're not a slave. Show me you're not a slave. In fact, don't show me, show yourselves that you're not slaves, right? What are you doing? Now, you don't have to do this, right? It could be so different, because if governments operate the way we want them to, if this system operates the way we want it to, well, then what do you want? Why don't you give some thought to that? Why don't you give some thought to what you want and how you want it to operate? Yeah. Okay? Because it can be anything you want, right? Anyhow, look, let me just point something out about the system, okay? I've got a little film clip for you to watch here. It's from The Wolf of Wall Street. And when I say that the banking system is all just kind of like a fiction, okay, don't take my words for it. Take it from these guys. Look at this clip.
I gotta say, I'm incredibly excited to be a part of your firm. I mean, the clients you have are absolutely...
Fuck the clients. Your only responsibility is to put meat on the table. You got a girlfriend?
I'm married. I have a wife. Her name's Teresa. She cuts hair.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Think about Teresa. Name of the game, move the money from your client's pocket into your pocket.
Right, but if you can make the client's money at the same time, it's advantageous to everyone, correct?
No. Number one rule of Wall Street. Nobody, I don't care if you're Warren Buffett or if you're Jimmy Buffett, nobody knows if the stock is gonna go up, down, sideways, or in fucking circles. Least of all stockbrokers, right? It's all a fugazi. You know what a fugazi is?
Fugazi, it's fake.
Yeah, fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never landed. It is no matter. It's not on the elemental chart. It's not fucking real.
Right.
All right? Right. Stay with me. We don't create shit. We don't build anything.
No.
So if you got a client who bought stock at 8 and it now sits at 16 and he's all fucking happy, he wants to cash in, liquidate, take his fucking money and run home, you don't let him do that.
Okay.
Because that would make it real.
Right.
No, what do? You get another brilliant idea, a special idea, another situation, another stock to reinvest his earnings and then some. And he will every single time because they're fucking addicted. And then you just keep doing this again and again and again. Meanwhile, he thinks he's getting shit rich, which he is on paper. But you and me, the brokers, we're taking home cold hard cash via commission, motherfucker.
Right.
Okay, now remember, Wolf of Wall Street, as entertaining as that was based on actual events. Yeah. Okay. So, this is the guy who's played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who's actually recounting some of the events in his career, the conversations that he's had. Right? And I know for a fact, and anyone that's old hat in this would know, that system, the financial system, is a fugazi. It is not real. It does not exist. Okay? Now, let's have a look at this next thing, this next clip here, right? Because let's imagine that it was all real, okay? Let's imagine that it was all real. And let's imagine that the banks could be taxed for good, right? For the reasons of to do something good. Because some years back, there was a proposal to do just that, and to tax the banks a certain percentage. It was called the Robin Hood tax. Okay, and this was to actually, actually do some good in the world, right? Watch this clip.
Have you had this idea about the Robin Hood bankers tax?
Yes. It's a sweet little idea, taxing the banks to help the poor, but I don't think it'll work. It's very complicated and would be very tough on the banking sector.
Which has just been given billions of pounds of taxpayers' money to keep it going.
Well, yeah, of course.
And is still paying itself billions of pounds in bonuses.
Yes.
So the tax is a charge on all bank transactions that don't include members of the public. Bonds, derivatives, currency, speculative stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. Very complex.
So the bankers would give how much from each deal they do? 25%?
Well, no, not that much.
10%?
No.
5%?
No, not 5.
More or less?
Slightly less.
What, 1%?
Not quite.
Half of 1%?
No.
0.1%?
No.
Half of that? They give around 0.05% of every deal?
Yeah, that's about right.
And sometimes it'd be even less. That doesn't sound like a lot to most people.
No. I can see that.
And how much would it raise to help people at home and abroad?
Oh, a fair amount, I believe.
About £1 million a year?
No, more than that.
£100 million?
More.
£500 million?
Well,
£1 billion a year?
No, it's slightly more than that, I'm told.
£10 billion?
More.
£50 billion?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
In fact, I believe it's likely to be more than £100 billion. Could be double that. Could be more than double.
Yeah, possibly.
Right. So let me get this clear. A tiny tax on the banks could raise billions of pounds every year to help save lives in the poorest countries, fund crucial action against climate change around the world, and help avoid cuts to crucial public services in this country.
Gosh. Well, yeah. That is about the, some of it. I don't know. Perhaps it's, quite a good idea.
If I lay here, if I just lay here, would you lie with me and just forget the world?
Oh, there you go. Right. So, look, even if the whole banking system was real, okay, which it isn't, but even when the proposal was made to take just a small smithereen, okay, which could actually do a whole load of good in that system, the banks put up obstructions.
They did.
All right? That's your caring, sharing bankers for you.